Hi, my name's Tom Coates and this is the first ever Rugby League World video blog. Obviously, with it being the first one, it's pretty raw at the moment and there's a lot of improvements we can make, but that's where you come in, and hopefully over the month you can make a few suggestions and a few ideas for what we can speak about next month. Fortunately this month, for the first one, there's plenty for me to speak about with the licensing thing happening. The big news coming out of that is Crusaders' decision to withdraw their licence application, and Wakefield obviously being spared their place in Super League. A lot of people are saying how it's a dark day for Welsh Rugby League and how it might not ever recover and how all this progress has been wasted, but on that last point in particular I tend to disagree. I don't think the progress has been wasted. It's often said that an experiment's only a failure if nothing's learned from it, and I definitely think this is one of those instances. We have made a lot of progress, that's undeniable. They may not have the biggest of fan bases, but there's 3,000 or 4,000 there now that are fully committed to rugby league, and as we all know, once you're bitten by the rugby league bug, it stays with you forever. The other side of it, and perhaps more pertinently, is the players. There are not just one or two, there are 10, 11, 12, 13 good Welsh players that are playing at a very, very high standard now, and we only have to look at their result against Wakefield the other week to know how good these guys are. Lloyd White was outstanding that week, and it's crucial, I think, more than anything else, that these guys have found clubs at the top level and they're not lost to the game, either completely or worse still poached by rugby union, and the rugby union lads end up making the most of what we've done. We've put all this work in and they're playing for England at Twickenham. We don't really want that, or rather Wales at the Millennium Stadium I should say. What's important to me, in my opinion, whether this is possible or not I'm not sure, but we need to really work towards getting Crusaders or a strong Welsh team into the Championships as soon as possible. Whether that's under the Crusaders guise is up for debate. We've already got a presence down in Neath, South Wales Scorpions, and whether or not they're ready to make the step up, that's perhaps another question we need to ask. I know their results this season haven't been that great, but they've got a good solid base there. They've done it with purely Welsh players, and there again, the emergence of South Wales Scorpions as a genuine rugby league team, and Welsh players, that's born out of the progress Crusaders have made. Had there not been the Crusaders, there would almost certainly not have been South Wales Scorpions, and I think that's often overlooked. But as I say, it's the Welsh players in particular that have been playing it in the Super League that we need to be really working on keeping in the sport. A lot of the publicity and a lot of the news has been about the Australian guys and how badly done to they've been, and how they've come over from Australia, brought the family over here, brought their lives over here and signed long-term contracts, and they've suddenly been left in the dark over the futures. And they are, I'm not saying they're not deserving of our sympathy, because of course they are, but it's these Welsh guys who 7 or 8 years ago hadn't played a game of rugby league before and are suddenly proud to represent Welsh rugby league. It's these guys that need to be the focuses of our attention, whether they're playing with a new Welsh club in the Championship, or better still with an English or French, indeed French club in the Super League. This needs to happen. The big winners from the franchise fall out of Wakefield, and we've already said with the Crusaders, it had been predicted before that it was definitely Wakefield that were going to be dropping out, and now we're in a situation where Wakefield are still in the Super League. A lot of promises have been made by Andrew Glover prior to the and Andrew Glover and James Elson, I should say, prior to the licensing announcements about progress being made. Not so much on moving to Newmarket, but on actually developing Bellevue and the Rapid Solicitors Stadium as they're calling it these days. It's important now that Wakefield keep these promises regardless of Crusaders dropping out. That they've been spared. It's the RFL have said that Wakefield have got in there on their own merit, and I'm not so sure whether or not that's the case, to be honest. I think had we seen Crusaders maintain their application, then would have been fairly likely to see Wakefield drop out. But having said that, I'm delighted as anybody to see Wakefield still in there and offered that new opportunity. There's no doubt they've been a proactive club in the last year. They've pulled out all the stops in an effort to preserve their Super League licence, in the face of almost unilateral condemnation, and condemnation is probably the wrong word, but unilateral criticism of their prospects really. Everybody had basically written them off, and it was all about how they're doing the Championship next year and whether or not they'd come back. But to their credit, they've ignored that. They've battled on. They've worked hard to improve their image. They've rebranded themselves significantly, and I think they've got a lot of people on board with this new membership scheme. So that's all positive for them. But the worst thing we want to see is that 12 months down the line and 2 years down the line that they're still playing out of the same tired Bellevue Stadium. That'd be criminal in my eyes. I think they've made their promises. We've all called Salford you know, we've all criticised Salford in the past for not keeping their promises, but the progress they've made in their stadium recently, it's, you know, you can physically see it, and they're going to be there next season. And St Helens, although, you know, they were never really threatened as a result of the way they've played on the pitch over the last few years, they're moving into their new stadium too. The other two clubs I haven't mentioned who've been involved in this recent franchise announcement are Castleford and Halifax. Castleford's plans to move into a new stadium for 2012 were recently revised. They'll now be there, they hope, from 2013. And I'd ask the same questions of Castleford as I asked of Wakefield. They've been afforded the opportunity to continue in Super League. Let's see them prove you know, that they're worth a place. You know, 2015 is going to be coming around a lot quicker than we think, and wouldn't it be fantastic to see Wakefield playing either at Bellevue in a refurbished stadium or at a new one, and Castleford at a new stadium near the ski slope in a Glasshouse. And how fantastic would that be to see both those Yorkshire clubs in excellent stadiums? The other big issue from this last few weeks, it's been on the cards for a while recently, but it's recently confirmed that Toulouse will be playing in the Championship next year. And there's a myriad of different opinions on this. You know, some really despise the decision to admit Toulouse in the first place, and, you know, steadfastly refuse to accept them as a Championship club, you know, and consider them as such. Although a lot of these people, ironically, are the ones that have enjoyed their holiday over there. But anyway, the fact is that Toulouse won't be in the Championship next year, and they are more than likely to be in the Elite League. In this month's Rugby League World, Dave Woods tells us that he isn't that sad to see them go. He thinks that the fact that they didn't come in on a level playing field, you know, was very, very dangerous. It's a dangerous game to play a team coming in, you know, with dispensation of overseas players and unable to be relegated. And I tend to agree with what Dave's saying. I think if we are to expand the competition, then for us to do it legitimately and for it to be true expansion, these teams need to prove their worth on the same level playing field as the rest of the teams. They're not going to be deserving of any credibility, in my opinion. I think I can understand where the RFL's come from with saying they can't be relegated, and, you know, perhaps realistically Toulouse playing in Championship 1 with the budget that the Championship 1 clubs have got for travelling, perhaps that wouldn't have been feasible. I'm not denying that, but the dispensation of overseas players, you know, presumably the hope of having Toulouse there was to build a stronger French base of players and therefore strengthen the French national side. But if you look at the backbone of the Toulouse side of the last few years, they've had Rory Bromley at fullback, who, you know, undoubtedly an outstanding player. He's an Australian. They've had the Wynn brothers in there for a lot of the time at half-back, and again, great players, but not French, no good to the French team. You've got Brendan Worth in there at the prop forwards, and, you know, I could say the same about quite a few of them. They're fantastic players, but how they're going to benefit the French team, I'm not sure. I'm not wanting to detract from the work they've done elsewhere. I mean, you've got Sylvain Houlet there, and a number of other French players, and yeah, I'm not doubting that they have brought something new to the competition and that progress has been made. But I think if we are to attempt it again, I think in an ideal world, I think that we should have two strong competitions at the same level. We've got the Super League, which is effectively a European Super League, and I think below that we've got the English Championship and the French Elite League. I think more needs to be done between these two. You know, we have the Northern Rail Cup involving the Championship and Championship 1 clubs. Why not expand this to include the French clubs, so we can have the French domestic competition and the English domestic competitions, and then we can have a crossover competition, ideally similar to the format of the Tres Tournois. I think that's getting on 9 years ago now, where it's at the end of the season. We've got the grand final winners from England, and we've got the grand final winners from France, and obviously with the pull of promotion removed, I think it'd be an extra thing for them to aim for if, say, Featherstone win the league this year and Toulouse win the French Elite League next year. The two could come together and play in the new Anglo-French tournament. I think that'd be fantastic, and it gives us a real idea of where the top French teams are compared to where the top English teams are. We've got the Challenge Cup, but, you know, it's a one-off match. I'm not sure we can read too much into those, but a legitimate, sustained competition between the two sides, it'd be excellent, I think. Other than that, if you're going to readmit Toulouse in a few years' time and you know, reattempt it, then, you know, I'd support that entirely. But like I say, I think it needs to be on a level playing field. They need to play the same rules as the rest of the English clubs, and they need to prove their worth that way. Well, that's the end of the first ever Rugby League World video blog. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope it's provided a little extra value to your iPad and iPhone and Android apps this month. We will be continuing with it, hopefully, over the next few months. I'd be delighted to hear any feedback you've got. any suggestions for what we're going to talk about. If you think I've been talking a lot of rubbish, then I'd love to hear your opinions on that too. Otherwise, I'll see you next month. Thanks very much.